I'm Chase.
And I'm Timothy.
And this is Customer Service.
Morning, Cheddar. How are we?
Morning, Brondo Dog. Not great. Not great this morning.
Under the weather.
Recording the intro, yeah.
Under the weather. We got you a flu shot, which is one of my favorite beverages, which is ginger, cayenne, oil of oregano. What else is in there? Lemon. No, I think it's the oil of oregano.
Oh.
The worst part, it's the part that's good for you, but it really lingers in your sinuses.
Tastes how Home Depot smells.
Weird. It tastes to me like how like a cheap pizza tastes. You know what I mean? It's a lot, but I like it. Like I said, I've kind of done a 360 on it to where I'm into it now. Like I could drink a few of them.
Yeah. I mean,
but they rock, yeah.
I was just in Abby's office saying bye, making sure, hey, you guys need anything before the day wraps up? And she goes, Cheddar. This is burning my lips. And I was like, we've done this before. Yeah. It's down the hatch. It is not a sippable beverage.
You don't sip it. You just got to put it all down
get
at
it
one
in your
time.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once it's in there, I don't mind.
I like it. I'm with you.
I like the burn.
I like the harshness of it. And if you accept that it's not green juice or it's not a strawberry banana smoothie, but you can. I'm all in on it. Is what I'm
telling you what I borderline crave that like intense ginger situation now because I like
into it. I'm into it too.
Yeah.
Ginger in these scenarios I love. I don't like when ginger overpowers a food. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna be honest. Outside of like Indian cooking or something, I'm not a big fan of it in the world outside of that. I mean, I like a Schweppes like anybody else, but outside of that, like I'm just not a big ginger guy. But then the only other version I really love is this intense version.
Have you had those gin candies? Remember they sell them at Lolitas? They're chewy.
Those are pretty good. Those are kind of do the same thing for you.
I don't like the ginger flavor, but if you get the apple, it's like very strong. It's basically like apple cider.
Will you do an apple cider vinegar shot now and then?
Yeah, I would happily.
I do that a lot too.
I don't do it, but I would.
I like anything in shot form. Like this is what I don't remember who we talked to about this. I wish there was more things in shot form that were non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
I want the same intensity out of it, but I don't want to be inebriated.
And obviously, I don't want them to cost as much because...
I don't care.
Well, you know what? No, I think
it's a lot of stuff in a little thing.
I'm with you though. I think it's fun. We should try to do that. By the way, hey, we got a blender now. Michelle bought a blender last week, Friday.
With a Vitamix?
It wasn't a Vitamix because we haven't used a Vitamix, so it's up. We haven't used a blender up to this point. So it's like
once you go Vitamix, you can't go back. That's the one.
I was wondering.
Yeah. Well, if you maybe start
ours
here.
Ours is Breville. It's the Breville.
It'll still be good, obviously, but use it. And if you're like, we're using this a lot, then you go Vitamix. Because Vitamix, you can do a lot of different things, and that's how you do like a soup. That's how you do a smoothie, and it does a good job at a smoothie. I also like to make ice cream in it, basically homemade ice cream out of frozen bananas, and then you doctor it up a little bit. That's good.
That today.
It's good.
We also bought popsicle molds, so I've been wanting to do.
Oh, welcome to hell! I hate those fucking things. They're a pain in the ass. Gia likes doing it, and it just every single time they don't really go in the dishwasher. It's a whole thing. They fall at the bottom. You have to restart the thing. It drives me crazy.
No, this is it's a one big rubber.
It's a silicone thing. Yeah, we've had those too, but it's got to have the stick, right?
Yeah, we got the stick, or there's an attachment where you can get it comes with 2 wooden sticks. You can put the flat piece over top and put. So
I'll say something inflammatory. I don't like popsicles.
Inflammatory.
I don't mind like if it was an ice cream bar, something like that. I'm in, but a popsicle on its own, give or take. I mean, like not that I won't eat one. It's just I don't know.
I think when I'm thinking about it, I don't think I love them. But then once you have one, you're like, God. There's these ones from Whole Foods Caribbean mix. They're like strawberry, pineapple, mango, coconut shards.
Mango doesn't count in this because mango is basically the same consistency of ice cream to me.
It is.
It's like a sorbet.
Mango is already a sorbet, especially the ones that aren't very stringy.
I'm telling you, you get the Vitamix, you put the ice in there, you put some mango in there, it basically turns into that. Dude. It's good.
That's tight. Okay, I'm gonna get hip to that. So
we'll see. We'll see how you go with this one, and then I'm sure this one's still. You probably
got the flu shot, but nonetheless, without any further ado, we have a funny guest on today.
Yes, we have wanted to have this person on for a while. I discovered them through a different podcast, and then kind of immediately thought she was such a funny guest on the podcast that I had to look her up. Hadn't seen the other stuff that she was involved in, and then was like, holy shit, it's just thing on top of thing on top of thing. And I feel like at least maybe this is my world or my algorithm, but suddenly I'm seeing her all the time now.
Yeah.
She is busy. She gets stuff done, and she's like funny and great. So this is Vic Michaelis. They kindly said that they would do the podcast. It rules. We were really excited to have them. It's like she does a lot of different things. There is let's start. Well, I'm trying to think of where to start. They've done Hallmark movies, a lot of different acting. But I don't know. For me, Vic was on Very Important People. This is a show on Dropout. You can watch pieces and parts, or you can get Dropout and watch it. And it's they're doing an interview with a random. I mean, I'll let her set it up. She sets it up in the thing, so maybe that's the way.
I was gonna say in the pod, we're like, so what? She puts it perfectly. If for those who aren't familiar, and lays out the premise perfectly.
Let's let Vic do it.
Yeah.
Also, another great variety type of improv show called Game Changer that's also on Dropout, and then part of Comedy Bang Bang. If you've never heard Vic on Comedy Bang Bang, look up her episode specifically, especially the one where I forget the name of the character, but Vic's a mime. And it's very funny. But there's a million of them. And then I think she just got done doing a tour with Comedy Bang Bang also, which she touches on. So she goes into all of this. She's so funny.
Down to clown.
Yeah, down to clown. So glad she did it.
Starts off with the coolest outfit we've seen from a guest.
Yeah.
We get right into that.
Yeah. Let's I don't know why we're setting it up anymore. Check Vic out everywhere, and I'm sure that like I did, you'll hear on here and then be like, I gotta
consume the rest of it.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it.
All right. All right, Vic, let's start off strong. You're in an Orlando Magic jersey. Who do we got on the back of that? I don't know number 12.
Do you want to guess?
I mean,
you just said you don't know number 12, and I'm like, want to guess?
It's not. Shaquille O'Neal was drafted to Orlando, I believe, but I don't think he was 12.
It would have been like a pinstriped one, I feel like.
Yeah, it would have been old. And it's not Tracy McGrady. I don't think that T-Mac was 12. So that exhausts all of my...
I'll give you a hint. I think this person got canceled, maybe?
Wait, Dwight Howard? Yeah. Oh, let me tell you a story about Dwight Howard, in fact. I was a big Duke basketball fan. I loved J.J. Redick. J.J. Redick got drafted to Orlando as in his first year in the league, but he was injured. So I had went to a basketball game with a Duke Blue Devils t-shirt intending to get J.J. Redick's autograph. He was injured and did not dress, so therefore was not signing autographs. Dwight Howard walks by, and I'm holding a Duke t-shirt and a Sharpie, and I was like, can I have your autograph? And I hand him it in just like a ball. I hand him a t-shirt and a marker. He goes, you got to help me out, man. Take the cap off. And so he begrudgingly signed a Duke Blue Devils t-shirt meant for J.J. Redick. But anyway.
Oh, man. That's nice. Is that a rule that if they're not dressed for the game, they can't sign stuff?
That's just what they were saying. Everybody was like, JJ, and either his representatives or team was like, he's not doing it today. He's not playing. He's not dressed. He's not doing it. So
he's got headphones on. He's playing Candy Crush. They're like, he's not doing it. He can't. He's not dressed.
Yeah. Sorry. We like basketball, but I like only stuff from the 90s, and I don't know anything.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fair. And honestly, I think I'm going to say costumes. I think the costumes were best in the 90s. Like, I feel like that is, for the most part, that's the aesthetic. Or I don't know if you know hockey at all. There's like these throwback jerseys that they do. Yeah. And I'm not a Coyotes fan. I think they're not the Coyotes anymore. I don't think that they're in, where was it? Arizona?
I think they just recently, there was a sort of a coup was staged, if I understand correctly. And the owner basically overnight moved the team to, I want to say Utah. Yeah. But I know the logo. It's very like flat and geometric, right?
Yes, and especially their throwback jersey, which is like a throwback to like those 90s jerseys, is unbelievable. They're called like reverse retro or something like that. So they're like color flips. They're unbelievable. Highly recommend looking that up. And I would imagine that's going to be, well, I'm like, I think it's probably a really expensive jersey now. And then I'm like, no, literally nobody knows that the team existed. And then they moved and people are like, did they? From where?
Yeah. And like, you know what? Here's the thing. Hockey is a winter sport, so it shouldn't be in Arizona, Florida, the Carolinas. God bless them. But your pond's never going to freeze over. So
no,
it's just
the
not
fact
too
that their
unnatural.
hockey teams are so good and their basketball team, again, good year, but is historically so bad. I think that that's problematic.
Yeah, I agree.
Shouldn't be allowed. Vic, where are you from? You've thrown out Orlando hockey, which makes me feel like it's from the north. Where we live? Where were you born at?
You asked a loaded question, a complicated one immediately off the bat. So I moved around a ton growing up. I was born in Jersey, then we moved down to Texas. I was in Northern California for 2 years. We were in sort of like a suburb of Chicago, like 2 hours out, which was mostly farmland when I lived there. And then where I consider home would be Toronto, Ontario. We moved up there when I was 15, and my folks just moved down like 2 years ago to Orlando to retire.
Good Lord, that's a lot of...
What was the cause of that?
Moving around?
Yeah.
My dad, just for his job, like every couple of years, we'd end up moving around. People keep saying military, and I'm like, business.
Just business.
Just paychecks. But paychecks.
So Toronto feels like that's home, though.
For sure. I'm like, growing up in like farm country, and then at 15 moving to like the middle of like in my opinion, one of the best cities in the world. Have you spent any time in Toronto?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm from not originally, but I lived in Chicago for a really long time. So like
great.
So we'd bop up there because you could get like a $25 ticket for a little while, and it's very cool. And it's it feels a little like Chicago to me, but it's great.
Yeah. And then
it is for sure.
And then I'm from Cleveland, which is just over the lake. I think it's the biggest city closest to us.
Cleveland?
Yeah, or I think Toronto's the closest big city to
big
Cleveland,
city.
even despite the border. But I think it's quicker to get there than say Chicago or even Columbus. Even
I was just in Cleveland. It's a great city.
You think so?
I do. I thought it was really pretty, and now I'm worried that I wasn't in Cleveland, but I'm almost positive I was. What are the other big cities in Ohio?
The city you were in, was it on the lake?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You were probably in Cleveland. Yeah, Cleveland's cute. You know.
It was like, I just didn't know what to expect mostly. And then I got there and I was like, this is great. Because then I was on tour. And so we ended up going through, I mean, like I've spent a lot of time in Indiana just because it's like, I don't know, it's around in Wisconsin. Yeah. Is that true?
Yep.
Indiana from Indianapolis?
Not specific, mostly Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is like northeast.
Oh, yes. I've been to Fort Wayne. I spent a lot of time. Well, I did martial arts growing up, and so we go to a lot of local tournaments in the area. So like a lot of Wisconsin, a lot of Indiana, a lot of Iowa. Like I've been to most sort of like mid-sized towns in those areas.
If you're like a middle schooler to high schooler that's active in sports, you end up in a Midwest circuit that you can't escape. Because we grew up like within soccer and stuff, and like I've been to all sorts of every dumb town in the Midwest I've been to.
Yes, you're spending time in Bloomington, Illinois. Yep. It's like you have to. It's a legally binding contract you sign when you sign up for competitive travel soccer.
Yeah.
How long were we doing? What version of martial arts were you doing?
I did Taekwondo, and I ended up doing that for like 13 years. And I got out to California. I was like 13, 14 years. I was pretty competitive with it. And when I got out to California, I was like, I'd like to get back into it. Hadn't done it for like 5 or 6 years. And I went to like a gym, and there was like these they were like, what kind of martial arts, like what kind of Taekwondo, like what stuff were you doing at your old gym? And I was like, I used to compete. And they were like, great. Well, have you go to the classes with the kids that are getting ready for competitions? I was like, how fun. That's going to be amazing. And I just got my ass kicked for like 3 months straight by these 14-year-olds. And I haven't been back since.
Yeah.
So it's just out of your like, but I feel like when something's ingrained in you, like 13 years, do you still like do some moves? Are you ever, at a party and show off a little?
1000%. It's like, it is my only party trick that I have is like my party trick is teaching self-defense to people at parties like, I literally is like having like a couple little self-defense moves that I'm like, it's like easy and people feel very impressed by it and people like practicing them. So it's fun to sort of really change the mood of it.
Yeah. Just like, you just change the mood of a party by tossing an adult man around. So Vic, what have you been up to lately? Because I'd love to ask you a bunch of questions about other stuff you've worked on that I know of, but you said you were on tour and stuff?
Yeah, I was on the Comedy Bang Bang tour for a small,
cool.
which is another podcast. I don't know what the etiquette around discussing another podcast on a pre-existing podcast that you're doing is, but it's like an improv based podcast. So it was really fun and crazy, especially because you go and record those in a studio, with like 4 people, and then you leave and sort of come face to face with, like thousands of people that are listening on a regular basis was crazy. Was truly crazy.
Had you ever like toured comedy before?
No, never.
Was it fun?
Did perform. It was so fun.
Yeah.
It was really cool. We got to do these meet and greets afterwards, which was really fun. Getting to, just like chat with people who I think too, I forget that most people have like 9 to 5s or some version of that, where it's like they're like going into a building or are like clocking in and having to like, be on their computer for X amount of hours, because people are like, I work and I listen to podcasts. And I was like, that makes sense. That tracks with what I know about working and sort of the culture around working. That checks out. But it was like truly a very cool thing getting to like face to face, because I also work for a company called Dropout that does a lot of like comedy and streams a lot of comedy stuff, improv specifically. And so we don't get to talk to people often that are like come face to face with people at different parts of the country that are watching that. So it was very, very cool to get to chat with people and have them talk about how that's like how watching that or listening to Comedy Bang Bang has impacted them, which was just very interesting.
Well, it's funny. I mean, this is on a completely different scale than you, but we get, I'm sure, this is the question I'd like to ask, is that we get all the time, like people will come, like just the other day, we got a kid telling us like, hey, I was in London and I mentioned that I used to work for you guys. And he was like, oh, do you listen to the podcast then? And we're like, there's no way people in London listen to this stupid shit. And then we're like, and then we were in Japan, like not that long ago. And then some guy was like, Timothy and Chase. And we're like, yeah, what's up? And they like knew us. And so it's weird because like you're saying, you just do this thing in a room and then we leave and then never think about what we talk about again. And then people now bring things up or like will text or like DM us about like, oh, that was funny or this was a thing you said or whatever. And I'm like, as soon as I exit this room, I forget entirely.
Blackout in the booth and it's gone.
So it has to be similar for you, where like people are like quoting things back to you, saying things, and you're like, I don't fully remember, especially improv.
Definitely. I'm so curious for you guys though, because like what's nice about improv is like there is a hard barrier for the most part between like I'm playing a character version of myself, and so how people are interacting with me is like through this thing that is not me that I have a hand in creating. Whereas like with you guys, I'd be so curious what that interaction is like, where it's like people being like, I know you specifically. Like, I feel like I have like intel on like you as a person. Like me as a person who you don't know, am friends with you as a person, like based on how much I've listened to you talk. Like, does that come up at all? What is that like?
Yeah, it's weird when they like kind of want you to do like bits for them, like and not like in like what you're obviously doing it at a very different level. We're just talking a lot, but you do have to like, you're on a microphone, you have to like turn on a certain level of personality to do that thing, and they'll want us to do stuff. They're like you said, like that's funny, right? And I'm like, I don't know what we're talking about right now, and then I like have to like inventory everything I've said over the course of however many hundreds of episodes now, and you're like, I don't know what that was, and I want to do the thing for you because I can see that you want it, but I don't know I don't remember what it was. So it's weird because you're right. It's like it's just us, and like half the time it's like serious conversations with fashion people, and then half the time it's just us goofing around. So, but it's just us being ourselves. That is totally different. That they probably want you to be not yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, people are also constantly asking me about my fashion. That's sort of that's top line what people want to know about me, is who am I wearing? Why am I wearing?
The first question we asked you, to be fair.
It was about my jersey. That's true. Yeah. Is that the first thing you notice about people is like clothes?
No.
No,
not at all.
I would say not typically. No.
Everyone, it's like a thing that like it's the same thing. It's like people want us to like, sort of like, and look, because I've worked in like retail for an extremely long time, you do kind of like, if somebody, I can kind of size up and go, oh, I know how much everything here cost and where you got it. But that's just because it's my profession. I don't really think much more of it other than it's like a side chained piece of information I have, but it's not anything I do anything with or really notice all that much. And quite frankly, we talk about it all the time. Like, we don't really want to talk about fashion because that's what we do all day, every day. So it's like,
you would make a killing Universal Studios is one of those people where it's like, how much do you weigh? How tall are you? What's your birthday? But then like, how much does your outfit cost? Be like, I can tell you within like $40 how much your outfit costs. You would make
this is a rock solid idea. Yeah. And I would like to do it. I could, I feel like it could be a situation like when you go to like a drag brunch too, where I can sort of like rip on them a little bit too, and they'd kind of want it, and so I can kind of size them up, call out the fakes that they're wearing, things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got a plug?
I'm saying think about it. I'm saying consider it. Yeah, my plug is my plug is me telling you to go talk to Universal Studios.
Show up at Universal
Hollywood
Studios
specifically.
Yeah.
Go stand next to the booth where they're doing where they're actually trying to sell like the minimum wage worker who's trying to sell like the ring toss or whatever, and be like, I know how much your outfit costs. Give me half of the money that you were going to give the ring toss person, and I'll tell you.
Give me half of that big stuffed animal, and then I'll come back for the other half, and I'll play for it.
Out there with a karaoke machine yelling it out.
Yeah, you're going to get kicked out of the park, but it's going to get traction. It's going to be really big online. People are going to be very interested.
I'm going to get a solid 30 minutes out of it.
Yeah.
I think so, honestly. And then you're going to get kicked out of Universal Studios, which is a shame. You're probably not going to be allowed back in the park, which is a loss.
I've never been there before.
Ever?
No, I've never been to any, other than like Cedar Point, where we're from, I've never been to any sort of park thing ever.
Vic, do you know Cedar Point?
Yes. Do I know Cedar Point? A Cedar Fair park? Of course I know Cedar Point.
Yeah.
Canada's Wonderland was a Cedar Fair park, and I worked there for a long time. That's just fun.
Mine does
for
this
some
all
reason,
the time.
we don't know what hand gestures do what, but apparently there's certain things. Look, it won't work when he wants it to work. Normally balloons come up. It's a whole thing.
No, never mind. Nope.
Isn't there one like this where you thumbs up? I'm sorry, this is an audio medium, and I am really just throwing out hand gestures.
He's doing it more than you are. So so Cedar Point. I've been, and I don't remember if it was Cedar Point or Six Flags. My dad used to do wiring for roller coasters, which is like a psychotic job. So he's got all these like pictures of himself like chained just like with one thing, and he's just up on top of like the mantis. You know that one? I don't know where that's at.
Yes,
that's Cedar Point.
He carved my name into the side of the mantis. I've never been to it, but apparently my name is there.
That is wild. Is that it? Where it's like because it was family business, you were like not interested?
Oh, we just didn't go there.
Family business.
I don't know. You'd have to ask my parents. I'm not sure. We didn't. That's not how we spent our free time.
Yeah, shoot me his email. I'm gonna inquire into this.
Yeah. Vic, you don't understand what you're asking. My dad has never had an email. I think he sent 2 texts in his whole life. So an email seems crazy.
I'll send a telegram. Get me the address.
I would send it to you. I would like to see him open that letter.
God, yeah.
Hello, sir.
So how do you okay, so we've gone a lot of different directions here. How do you start getting into like comedy then? Because that feels like a sharp left turn from Taekwondo.
Loneliness. Loneliness, pure loneliness. I started off doing speaking of fashion, which I know you said you don't want to talk about, so we'll...
No. We're down to talk about fashion. Yeah. We're down to talk about fashion.
I in Toronto started out trying to do like modeling, but I was very bad at it. I'm 5'9", so I was not really tall enough for runway. I wasn't totally skinny enough for runway. It was never my thing. My face is not symmetrical enough for editorial. I started doing commercials, which felt so embarrassing at the time because all my friends were booking these campaigns, and I'm doing I'm the only one actually making money doing Monistat commercials and Walmart commercials and stuff like that. Yeah. But it just it felt so bad at the time, and now I look back on it and I was just I was paying for dinner when we were going out. Is you know what I mean? It was crazy. So I got into doing that type of stuff. I moved out to Vancouver. And it really was I was very, very lonely. I knew I wanted to do stuff sort of in the film and television world. Somebody was at an acting class was you should look at doing a comedy class. And I was okay. And so I started doing short form improv in Vancouver. I don't think I was great at it, but I met a lot of really great people doing it. And so when I got down to LA, I was okay, I think I want to try this a little bit more. And so I started doing stuff over at UCB, which is a big comedy theater out there. And it became my entire personality. It became all I did all the time. And I did customer service. I did brand ambassadoring stuff for a long time just sort of hawking different brands at festivals and e-cigarettes at nightclubs and things like that in order to continue to pay doing improv classes.
It's
Sick.
like you're down to put yourself out there, which I appreciate, because that's whenever people ask advice on like, how do I get into this, how do I get in that, I'm like, I don't know. You just go like fail at 100 things and you just keep doing them, and you have to have some sort of blind ignorance that you think it's just gonna work out, and then it eventually kind of does in a different way than you meant it to.
Isn't that always so crazy where it really is like, if I really wanted to be a serious actor, and if I like, there was somebody that said this thing that I thought was so smart, which is just like, I'm losing out on opportunities now that I didn't even know were possible 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like if I would have looked at myself 10 years ago and been like, you're going to be like missing out on a pilot because you're shooting an improv show, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Shooting an improv show? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? I need more specifics. Like it just is very, very cool, and in a way that like I feel so grateful that this is the way that it panned out, but I just also never could have pictured myself being here.
Yeah. Do you still find yourself like wanting to do serious acting?
No, not even a little bit. Memorize lines? I don't think so. Are you kidding?
No. That feels like the hardest part about it, and no one talks about it.
I think about it all the time.
All these actors have great memories.
They don't. Is the secret. I did a Hallmark movie, which was so truly so fun. And I was talking to one of the people on set, who I won't name just in case I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but she was telling me that just like sometimes you would have to just like sit behind chairs and scream lines at actors, and then they would say the line and they'd just cut out the part of her screaming the line at them. And it always looks great. But it's like that also, I guess, is theoretically an option.
How do you get involved in a Hallmark movie?
Through like my agents. Like I do a lot of traditional acting stuff too. I do really, really love it, but it is funny, like getting into improv, I didn't even know that there was an ability to make any kind of money off of improv. And literally Dropout kind of it came to be as I was coming up in improv. So it really is a case of right place, right time. Historically, you do improv to get noticed by networks who then will put you in film and television stuff. You know what I mean? To be sort of like a supporting funny character in like a sitcom or a movie or whatever it is. And now it is like the first time, not completely. I mean, like there's like Whose Line Is It Anyway and a couple of those other things. And there's like SNL and Mad TV and sort of those types of things. But normally it was sort of, how do you turn your improv into something that's scripted that you can sell to a network? And so this is sort of like, it feels like one of the first times where people can actually turn improv into something that is like more widely consumed, edited improv, which feels very, very cool and very special.
So were you a Hallmark movie fan prior to doing that? Because I like a Hallmark movie a lot, like the Christmas genre, the holiday genres.
I love a good like holiday rom-com. So mine was the Hanukkah one last year, called Round and Round. It was the most fun experience. It was so easy. Easy in a way that was like they have it down to a science over there. And so literally like I just got to come in and do work, and it didn't feel like a lot of like everybody was so kind and so calm. It didn't feel like there was any pressure in the situation, which is like the best case scenario for walking onto any set, because it is not always like that.
Wow. Well, so Hallmark. So that's like, but is that a bit of an anomaly for you of that one? Because I feel like I really only know you from comedy, really. And it's a romantic comedy, but a little bit more serious than normal. At least not, and it's not improv.
Yeah. I'd say I do like usually like between like 1 and 3 scripted projects. It's like not the bulk of what I'm doing in the year, but it is like, I've been very fortunate that like in terms of work like that, I do a little bit of that here and there. But normally it's like I'll pop on for an episode or a couple of episodes of like a show and a supporting role. But like the stuff that I'm most proud of, I would say, I shouldn't say that. There's some stuff I'm very proud of, but the stuff that like is like most personal to me and that I have the most like creative control over definitely is the comedy side of things. Have either of you taken an improv class? Would you do improv?
I mean,
I think
I've been a fan of improv forever, and because got it. I mean, I grew up really into like SNL and so like hardcore fan of that since I was like a kid, and then like late night shows and stuff like that. So I grew up like more on that. I've never really thought about it. I did music growing up and then like toured a little bit. So like that, like I don't mind like that kind of thing, but I've never thought to do I've never thought of myself as like funny, although people say it from the podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've just never even like thought about it,
We do bits internally and we have like long developed characters and
so
stuff
we might
like that,
as well. We do it at work.
But no, never traditionally have done an improv class, but love bits.
Yes. I'm always so like hesitant to be like, why just drop $500 into an improv class? Like it feels like such a crazy thing to pitch to somebody to be like, come on, think about it. And then if you like that, you can spend another $500 on another improv class. Like it is a crazy ask, but I do think it's like helpful for a lot of things. But honestly, like what you're talking about is it. You know what I mean? It's like, and you have a platform in which you're like putting that out. It's like podcasting is, I think, very close to a lot of like filmed improvisational stuff. Like I think people that are really good and funny, especially like improvised podcasts, are the same people that are very, very talented and skilled at doing filmed improv because there's no audience to react off of, you know?
Let me ask you a question on as far as like you've done improv at a pretty high level at this point. Like, are you nervous when you're doing it, or is it like because people would always ask that like when I played music and stuff. I'm like, I don't know. There's so much stuff I have to pay attention to that I don't really think about. You never really thought about the nerve-wracking portion of it. Like occasionally you'd get a show and be like, that's way more people than I realized it was going to be or something like that. But for the most part, you just had a kind of a job to do. And I didn't, and then you'd get into the zone. And by the second song, you're like, I'm good. I'm not even worried about it any longer. Does it feel like that? Or you just like, is it anxiety inducing to a certain degree, no matter what?
That's a great question. I definitely don't feel nervous getting on stage. I think more than anything, it's like, first off, like you start off doing when you're performing live, performing for, like the other people that are going to go up on the show later. Not exactly like the warmest crowd to be performing in front of, which is really helpful, especially if you can get up a lot and you can perform a lot, because it helps you develop a sense of what you think is funny, which I think is like the most important thing. I think of improv very, very mathematically. Like if I try something on stage and it works, it's then like, okay, with this type of a relationship or with a player that performs in this kind of way, I know that if they take it in a direction that's, if they take it down like X path, I know that this thing that I did can work in that situation. And that's something that I then just like file away in a little tool belt that I've got. And so the next time I come up on that, it might not be the exact same wording or the exact same situation, but then I can go, I've dealt with this before. What was it? Oh, here it was. And I can throw that into a scene. And so it's like, it really is just like improv specifically is you are coming up with stuff on the moment, but it's a lot of trial and error, a lot of practice, like those like 10,000 hours that you do or whatever. And I know they debunk that, but in this case, I do think that it is helpful. Like, however much time you're putting into performing with lots of different type of people, that helps build like your cachet of like your ability to do stuff. So I don't really get nervous anymore, but sometimes I will run into something where I'm just like, I don't know that I've like dealt with this situation before. How am I going to handle, like, what am I going to, in what direction am I going to take this? What is my best estimated guess of like success for the scene here in my own comedic perspective, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And that is exhilarating, because especially performing as much as I do now, I'm not like that often in a situation where like something is happening on stage that I have never seen before. So when that does happen, it feels very exciting, I would say. Even if it's bombing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's kind of like, I love watching comedians sort of like lose and then regain. Like it's the best. It's the most exciting thing that you can watch, because it's like, who knows? The momentum like they don't know palpable. And we don't know. Yeah, it's great.
Totally.
What do you think's like for you, like when you do like the dropout stuff where it's like filmed and all of that, or you do like a live show, is there one that feels better, easier? Is there like a difference to you?
Well, improv in particular is interesting because it's so much reaction based off, I think a lot about like why a medium for something, you know what I mean? Like especially with improv, it's like there's a clear reason why you put it on stage, which is because like you get a suggestion from the audience, meaning that the audience is participating and directly influencing the show and the direction that the show is going. And the suggestion also proves that it is being made up in real time. You know what I mean? Yeah. That like you can see exactly how things are built. I think that is like really cool and really interesting and makes improv something that you have to go to a theater for. So when you move it into a filmed space, it just really changes the dynamic of it, because you don't have that thing to like really prove that it is like being made up on the spot and being improvised. And so like I think with Dropout stuff, what's really cool is I think the thing that they have that you don't have at a live show is their ability to edit for story or for you get to prune the things that like weren't the funniest parts of the show. And so you're getting like the most concentrated, funniest part of like an hour or however long we're filming for, which is a really cool way to see it. I mean, there are filmed improv specials, and I know Dropout's putting out some right now, and I've seen bigger. I think it's like a really good representation and a really good energy and feel of what it's like to be in an audience watching something like that. So if you like going to improv shows and you understand that world, I think that like that would be a reason to watch those filmed improv specials. If you like improv, that's something that I think would be interesting to watch. But what I do in general like about Dropout's version of improv shows like Make Some Noise and VIP and some of those shows is I love how much they edit them.
Yeah. What do you do to like... Do you hype yourself up or do you like calm yourself down prior to doing that work? Do you know what I mean? Like, you do get a lot of coffee, get revved up? Like, I could see that going the way, or do you do you have to settle? Because it's a lot to process quickly before you do.
Are you guys coffee drinkers?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, I read something would not be the right term. I anecdotally heard through somebody mentioning something that...
This is a safe space. That's reading an article in my book.
I just, at some point, the information entered my brain that like somebody that drinks like more than 2 cups of coffee a day has X percentage less chance they're gonna die in some... It was something stupid, and
that sounds like science.
I took it as free license to drink as much coffee in a day as I can. So yes.
That makes me feel safe because I'm the same way. Yeah. I drink, I want to say 6 cups of coffee a day. I cut it with water oftentimes because I also have just gotten to the point where I like the taste. So like I'll just like crave the taste of coffee. And so I will literally, correct me if you think this is disgusting, we'll do like half coffee and then I'll just keep filling it up with water. So eventually it's like vitamin water, but coffee
we like
flavored.
This. I'm a big fan of water wine. This is a thing I think I invented. I don't think it's real. It's where I just drink mostly water and then on the weekends I just put a little splash of wine in there. It kind of tastes like wine, but it's not, because I don't want to get headaches and stuff.
He's been on this for a few months.
And I'll do the same thing with coffee. That. Just keep adding ice to things. I think I like ice as much as any other beverage.
I honestly love that. I think ice is a beverage with like a splash of flavoring, like a wine or a coffee or whatever it is, I think is brilliant. I don't often do it with ice, and I think I'm going to start just replenishing the ice on top of it. I think that is actually brilliant.
Makes it last longer, there's something to do because you can shake it around and do things while you're busy.
I love that.
You're revved up if you're drinking that much coffee all the time.
And watered down coffee tastes good. I used to, at the shop years ago, I had like a little, like a little AeroPress, I think is what it is. And I would make a cup of coffee and then I would leave the grinds in and I would just do it again when that cup of coffee was gone. And I called it coffee tea because it tasted like, like a watered down coffee like a watered down tea.
All you got to do is rebrand it. Rebrand it a little bit, and then it sounds like a cool thing that you're doing, and not like kind of like a gross thing like what it is.
I love it. Yeah.
I see. This is why you two are the experts, and this is why I brought this to you. I knew that we were going to be able to figure this out on my behalf, and I appreciate that. Yeah. Coffee tea, brilliant. It's like literally a brilliant framing because then people are like, coffee tea, what is that? And it's like steeped coffee. And so you'd go it through once because then it's like it's more of a brew than it is
you go hot or you go iced?
I go iced for the most part.
Same. It's way cooler.
I'm the same. I wanna shake it. I wanna shake it.
So now we're just talking about coffee infused water. So you just rebrand it a little bit, and then look at that.
Yeah, see, that looks good. I can tell that's watered down.
You can see that. Yeah, you can see that you've had that throughout the day.
I have done something disgusting with this, which is I have those, what are those like tea, like it's that tea shop that everybody gets gifted tea from them and then nobody ever drinks it and then you have to throw it away after like 4 years.
Oh, I want to be able to come up with this.
Caramel cake flavored tea. Like they just have like walls of like insane flavors of tea.
Like, what are you talking about from where we're from?
Is it Celestial Seasonings tea?
No, what is this? And then they like sell
like the
little
bear.
bags. Kind of. Yeah, it's not that. It's like it's one of those things where it's like I feel like tweet in if you know the answer. Tweet in if you know what I'm talking about.
Listeners, if you're out there.
Yeah, Xen. But I was gifted tea forever ago, and again, it went bad. It was like 4 years out of date when I threw it away. But I had all of those like tea bags that you can put stuff in there, and I just didn't have anything to put them in, and so I started putting coffee in there, and that was how I was cold brewing coffee. It was just putting it in there and then leaving it in the fridge overnight.
Yeah, that's sick.
So we're going into an improv situation, and you are just fucking gassed up. Is that the situation?
No. Because now, in order to survive, I need just like a baseline level of coffee. I'm just like this. This is sort of just my personality. I just am kind of all over the place, and I don't really have a train of thought. And if I do have a train of thought, it crashed a long time ago.
Let me tell you, when I put you on a list of people I would like to interview, Vic, this is when it was. I didn't know your comedy right away. I heard you on the Doughboys podcast, and here's what I liked about it. You're very funny, which is number one. But number two,
thank you
talked about the movie Twister, and you talked about it very sincerely, and I don't give a shit about what people like. I just like to hear how they talk about it. And I love the movie Twister, so I didn't need to be convinced, but I'll get reconvinced of anything Helen Hunt's really been involved in, quite frankly. But like, that's the type of energy I like, is just people that are really revved up about anything. I don't care how you get there, but like when you say, I just like it all the time, it's like the same. It's like people are always like, you talk too fast, or you're doing them things. And I'm like, I can't turn it off now. You know what I mean? Just because I started doing it into a microphone, I can't put it in rewind now. It's going one way.
Yeah, this train is on the track and it is not going anywhere. It's glued, super glued. That's very kind of you to say. I really appreciate that. No, I mean, like that I think as I've gotten older too is something that I really appreciate, is like I want to hear things that people are excited about. Like I want to try things that people love. Like I'm not interested in like hate negative reviewing things for like, because it's funny, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I would way rather like listen to somebody talk about something that they love and are actively interested in. That's what's going to make me interested in something.
Most of this podcast that we do when we do it, just he and I, is like us throwing out an insane idea and then really trying hard to convince each other that it's accurate because we care about it. But these are things that don't matter to anyone except for us. Yeah. So that's like a Twister is like the perfect version of something like where I'm just like, I just love it. I don't care if it's anyone else considers it bad. Let me try to show me that how much you like it. I just don't like when people are like, I just like anything. It's like, okay, well, you're not an interesting person. We can move right along from here. I want to go mingle around a party and find the freak who wants to convince me of something really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's my thing. Little freak who likes things.
Yeah, great.
Okay, can I get an example of that, like from you, where it's something that you're like you feel very passionate about?
Feel very passionate about. Oh, it's hard.
I'm excited about mostly everything.
He likes everything that's ever existed.
Yeah.
So he has no. You can't really take.
I'm not a good gauge of what's good or not.
Like
yeah.
There's no.
So when you're talking about getting away from somebody at a party that likes everything, you're talking actively about your friend and co-host.
Yep. Accurate. Yeah.
We work well together, but it is an odd pairing. Yes.
Yeah. I like to like. I just, you know what I'm saying? Like you start out in a place and then I want to go, this is all the reason. Let me dismantle it and then see if he just keeps going. And then you just, you know, it's like, it's here, like you're saying, it's pretty much just improv. He puts the plane up and then he cuts the engine and I try to land the plane. You know what I mean? It's the same. It's all the same stuff.
Love it. A perfect analogy. No notes.
I'm trying to think of like ones that we've thrown out, things that
again,
we really
black out
about.
in the booth.
I don't, it's hard to remember.
And we also talk. We will walk out of this room and we will converse for the next 4 hours until we leave too.
Are you guys in the same room right now?
Oh yeah, he's right across.
He's right across.
Here, you want to touch my hand?
Yeah. You're kidding.
You can't see
Look at that.
Yeah, we're just across from one another.
Yeah.
You guys picked the one plane that I can't see. The plane in between, sort of like your two. I'm assuming phones or computer setup.
Yeah. We have fake stuff in the background, so we show that it looks like this is just like an office, and we just made it look like there's things that but we do work out of the same office too, to be honest with you.
Here, you know what?
It's just easy.
Since we're on the Orlando Magic tip, let me show you something right there.
What do you think about that?
Oh, come on. Basketball.
That's a little T-Mac. Tracy McGrady was number 1. I could have referenced.
Almost there.
Too late.
Let's see. He likes fruit. That's a big one that we try to, like all sorts of fruit. That's a big thing. He's very passionate about.
I would say that I was talking about it for like an hour earlier too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love fruit.
Do people not like fruit? Is that a thing?
No, not the way he likes it.
I'm interested in fruits you can't get traditionally. I'm interested in like hyper exotics or super tropical. I'm interested in the commercialization of it. I like to learn about where it came from and how it is now being grown in Mexico, or because there's a lot of like trade rules and a lot of I'm going to go on about it, but the fruit will have like
this is fascinating
insects and can carry disease that, for instance, if it were introduced to the North American climate, it could wipe out all of our nectarines or what have you. You know what I'm saying? So I like fruit a lot, isn't
that always nuts with stuff like that, where it's like one bug that could potentially like wipe out, like there's a pine beetle in sort of like the Northeast that like is just came in from somewhere else and is just decimating pine trees like all across like the Northeast. It's crazy how like delicate the ecosystem is.
Yeah. You can't bring everything everywhere. It all is kind of supposed to stay there. But I mean, that's one of the random things that we're into.
I got in some hot water for saying that I've never noticed a tree in my life. Things like this, just
never noticed a tree in your life.
No, I mean, I know that they're there. Like I know to avoid them if I'm driving or something, but I don't. Well, it's like I've never noticed like one looking different than another. It's all just. It might as well just be like a cartoon. It's just they're all drawn the exact same way in my head, and I don't notice a single one.
I'm gonna telegram your dad. You two are gonna go down to Orlando, Florida, and you're gonna go to Animal Kingdom, because there's it's a fake tree, but there is a massive tree there, and you're going to notice that. And then
you're talking
back
my language, though. Fake tree.
Let me know.
More likely that I would.
I know the tree you're talking about. I believe I went to.
What do you guys all know this tree in Orlando?
I went to Disney
it's a good tree.
World when I was very young, and we were given a VHS, promo tape from our neighbor 2 doors down. It was like, hey, we just went on this vacation, it's really beautiful, you should go. And we watched this whole VHS tape of this special hotel that had a train coming through the second level and all these pools and this and that. And we get to Florida and we get off this little tram bus, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? This isn't the VHS thing. So I threw a whole fit. Anyway, I saw the tree.
Okay. And so listen, we got there eventually, and I'm happy that you got to see the tree. What hotel were you staying at? Because that's the contemporary resort you're talking about. This is another one of my interests. You describe a Disney property hotel, and I can tell you which hotel it is.
The one that we were gonna stay at, if I remember correctly, I was very, very, very young. I was probably 6. It was, I believe, like an outdoor themed hotel with a lot of pools and jungle gyms and whatnot, and where I ended up was a music themed hotel.
Oh, you were gonna stay at Fort Wilderness, and then I think you ended up at not the Art of Animation. It's the one next to the Art of Animation. Okay, so you caught me in a trap. I said I could name any hotel, and I can name its approximate location, and I can't think of what its name is right now.
Yeah. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. I was very unhappy about it. I'll say that.
I'm unhappy on your behalf right now. If you thought you were going to stay at Fort Wilderness and ended up at that one near the Art of Animation, I'd throw a fit too. I love that.
Yeah. Hell yeah, thank you.
So we've got, what are the things so far? Coffee you're passionate about, Disney hotels, Disney hotel properties is the way you worded it, which I like much better. Sounds more business-like. You got anything else in this regard? Taekwondo, no, not interested anymore.
I mean, I love it. It just, at this point is one of those things where I think I've passed my age and my ability to participate. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like because I think it's one of those, I don't know if you guys have anything like this where I have a vision of myself doing that activity and I can't do that anymore. And so anything I'm doing feels like a failure. And so it's very, very hard to continue participating.
Yep. Soccer.
Yeah. You're just like, it's just different. Everything, when you move, you're just like, it's like molasses now, for God's sake. You know what I mean? No matter how much I work out, no matter what I do, it's the same.
Yeah.
Did you both play soccer?
Yeah, we both, I mean, I've only known Timothy for 7.5 years or so, but we both played independently for most of our lives in the Midwest. Yeah.
Which is crazy, because is there a chance that you faced each other?
Probably. We're from the same area.
He's older than me.
Yeah.
And he played at a higher level. But he would have played against probably some of my buddies. But
we're from very similar places.
Yeah,
so
really
similar.
And
it would be shocking if we were never in the same room. And we grew up like into hardcore music, so like we definitely shared space before we met each other.
It had to have happened, yeah.
Oh, hardcore music. That's interesting. Like what are we talking?
Depends
like
on the area. Punk, hardcore, early 2000s kind of.
Like straight edge?
Yeah.
So these are like, guys you don't want to talk to now that were really, you know what I'm talking about? The ones that stuck with it, certainly, or that's not necessarily the most fun people to chat with. But it's like that. It's that very like, push forward type of punk music that's very like, self-righteous.
No, I love that. I'm very into punk music as well. I like maybe a little bit of a different like breed of it. I was like very into. I feel like there was like a big scene in Florida.
Oh, there's a huge scene.
There was like some of those bands out of there, and then also
Gainesville.
Toronto has yes, Gainesville, Florida has like some of the best punk musicians in the world out of there. And then there's also like Toronto does have like a very, very lively punk scene, like angsty white boys who want to talk about how life is unfair. It's like it rocks. Like
you nailed it.
Came out of there.
Oh yeah,
Pup came out of there. I used to go watch them because they were formerly Topanga, and then like they literally like changed their name to Pup, and they were playing like public libraries in Toronto, and I was going to all of those shows. There was this bar called I don't know how well you know Toronto, but it was called Sneaky D's, which was like a big sort of like
I know it just from music,
yeah, just like a gross punk bar that was like so fun. And like we got like Single Mothers and like Modern Baseball and a bunch of bands like that that just are like incredible. The punk scene in Toronto is awesome.
Yeah, you're kind of dealing in almost that near the Midwest emo situation, which is like the other side of what we were very into.
American football and so on.
Yes. Other side of the lake.
Yeah. Same shit, just a different side.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Give us like, because we're already running out of time. I wasn't looking at all, but like very important people. So fucking funny, Vic. It's incredible. We love it.
Dude, thank
so
you
much.
so much.
It's so good.
The first clip, he goes, you gotta see it.
Yeah,
it was Tommy Shrigley, and
the whole thing
that's my buddy Zach. Just like really that one broke me as a person, I think.
It's so how ready are you for the interview? Do you know what I mean? Like how ready are you for that? Because it feels like it's like a kind of a shock and awe style situation.
Yeah, so I think for people that aren't familiar, basically what happens is like I am it's like a VFX improv show. VFX? Visual effects. SFX?
That's sound effects? Yeah.
Sound effects. So VFX.
We don't know better than you do.
I literally I caught myself and I was like, am I correct? And now it's one of those things like, when you have a password for something and if you don't think about it, you can do it. And then the second you start thinking about it, you're like, I couldn't tell you what my password is.
Your bank pin, you're like, no, I need to see it in the square so I can make the line in my head and then I can get in. But
1000%. It's a VFX show. I feel good about that. And if I'm wrong, don't tweet at you guys. Don't tweet at me. So they get in costumes, they look at themselves in the mirror, and then they come in for an improvised interview. I know very, very little. I help sort of like pick out the hair and makeup for them. I get to help pair improvisers. So I normally know a lot about the comedians as comedians. It's people that I perform with on a pretty regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right on.
So I sort of am like, oh, this person has like a very strong presence, but doesn't necessarily play like crazy different characters. So this is somebody that maybe we could put in some like heavy prosthetics or blah, 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 or like whatever. Like I can help pair people like that. The part that I don't like knowing about is what specifically the character that they've
Yeah.
created is, because
Yeah.
I don't want to pre-plan anything.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the way I like thinking about it is in the same way for an audience, you get a suggestion. Like for me, whatever like character they come up with, the makeup is the suggestion for their character, and then their character sort of like name and whatever an occupation and sort of like their little game is like their suggestion to us as a duo to start the scene. Is sort of the way that I think about it. So it's not, it's really not pre-planned in the beginning, and like sort of how you see it in the episode is sort of real time how it's happening.
It's because I think that like obviously it's so hard to carve out space considering those characters are so huge. And what I like is the minor bits of backstory that you've created for your character specifically, especially because I think you do the most genius thing, which is, and it's so simple, but it's that it's like you want the interview to go well, despite this being so fucking absurd. It's the best part about it. It's the best that you believe that they're going to do what they're supposed to do is the greatest thing.
Thank you so much for saying that. That is literally exactly my thought process going into it. Is like, I think, I mean, this is, again, I'm talking so much about the minutia of improv here, but I'm like, that I really think is it. I think voice of reason, which is sort of like traditionally what my character would be, is sort of like the voice of the audience, is usually thought of as kind of like the boring character. And I'm like, no, I'm a three-dimensional person that like has a active want in this situation, and it gives a reason for the scene to continue going forward. Otherwise, it's like very short. It's like, well, you're a little crazy, so maybe we'll move on to whoever's next. So like having a reason to be in the scene, I really think is like just helpful for me to continue the scenes, if that makes sense.
Well, it's as if that your character is sort of on whatever level a human being could compared to whatever the hell the character is meeting their energy at some point in it through what feels like anger, because I feel like at certain points you're like, you turn almost scary to a certain point because it's like you're daring them to fuck with you, and it's just it's like the best part of, as much as it's funny, because a big character like that, you like expect it to be funny, and it is beyond belief, just to be clear, but it's also so funny to watch you reacting and like I said, wanting them to do what they're supposed to do, and then getting elevated, like more and more angry that they're not, is perfect.
My little secret with VIP is that so there's this thing in musical theater, I don't know if you're theater fans at all, where like sometimes like tenors will opt up, especially for male parts, so that way they can't be replaced in the Broadway productions of things. They can't have new people come in because it's like a very difficult part to sing now that they've changed it and opted it up. So I had a similar strategy with VIP just because it was brand new. I didn't know if they were looking to like rotate the hosts every season or something like that. So I threw as many things that would tie me to the show in as possible. That way it was going to be difficult to replace me if they ever decided they wanted to go with another person, was my only real thought process with like adding backstory.
Well, it's just that you give just enough too that you have to like connect some dots, like that you have a stepchild and you kind of seemingly don't like them that much, and things like this that really make it like, it's just the having to connect the dots is as good as knowing the full on backstory.
Yeah.
I truly so appreciate that. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch it. It's like, it is the most special thing I've gotten to be a part of. I feel like so unbelievably grateful, and Dropout's like so good about giving us pretty free reign to like be very, very creative with it. They're like very good about saying yes to ideas that they think would be fun or interesting. And honestly, it's like very weird. And especially I feel like in film and television, at least the way that the industry is going is it's very much like, we want things that are safe. We want things that are going to fit in a box that we can like guarantee is going to make money back. And I think especially on the creative side of things, you know, we've just come out of like two pretty massive strikes. You know, there's like there were a couple on the horizon, and so I think that people are feeling very scared to step out of line or do anything that's going to rock the boat. And I feel very grateful that Dropout's kind of like, yeah, throw shit at the wall, we'll see. And honestly, like if it doesn't work, that's fine, we'll retool it, like don't worry about it, which is like given me as a performer and somebody that's like helping create this along with the director Tamar Levine, just like carte blanche to really feel like we can go for it, which has been amazing.
It's that it feels, I mean, you know, I love comedy a lot, but I think that there's issues sometimes with it, like starting to take itself too seriously and things like this, where you just kind of get like, you lose that there's any sort of like chaos to it, which I think is when it's at its best, when it's very unclear where it's going to go. And the fact that this feels so fun and light, and you get like people in the background laughing sometimes and things like this, it just feels more like playful in a way that like I just think that a lot of people have like lost their way on a little bit. So it feels fresh, even though it also kind of feels familiar too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. That's definitely what we're striving for. So like truly to hear you say that, it means so much.
Oh yeah. Which one has been like the most difficult? Because it felt like the most off the rails a little bit, because they all kind of are, to be fair, but
it's so interesting because the way that I feel about them now at this point, so we filmed them over the course of like maybe 4 days, and so my relationship to all of the material now mostly has been in watching them as they've come out. So like, as opposed to it being on the day filming them, it's been like watching the edited version of them and the edited process. And so that really has colored how I feel about all of the episodes. The one where I think like that I feel like quote unquote like difficult more, that like I think me as a character was like the most frustrated with a person would probably have been one of my favorite episodes of the season, which would have been I don't know if you saw the one with Izzy Rowland, who plays sort of like a pageant queen who is like just like constantly trying to get herself in trouble with the law on
kind
on
of like the one where
like,
it was most matched to your energy, I think. So
1,000%. It's like truly watching the like I think that was the one where I know is like the character version of myself felt the most nervous with. That was probably that episode. And like watching that one back, it's like it truly is, I think, one of my favorite episodes that season. I mean, all of them hold a very special place in my heart, but watching that one back, I was just like, oh, to me that was like the heartbeat of what I was hoping the show was going to be, and I like, it's one of my favorite ones. It feels very special to me.
Where did you have any expectation that it would kind of get as big as it's gotten?
Nope. We were, Tamara and I, like literally right after it came out, where we were like, this feels very special. And if nobody watches it, that's okay, because we got to do it exactly the way we wanted to. Dropout gave us sort of the license to like really put a lot of ourselves in it, really do it the way that we wanted to do it. And so it would be sad if nobody liked it. But it just was like, it felt hard to release that first episode, because I was like releasing out into the world something that like felt like, this is exactly what I find funny. I'm like, I find that this funny and I feel proud of this. And so if you don't like this, it feels like maybe a comment on like me and what I find funny and like my sensibility as a comedian. And so it felt scary to release in that sense. But it's been like so deeply overwhelming, the reception that it's gotten. Like, I feel nothing but utterly grateful that people are watching it, let alone liking it. It's like, it's been incredible.
On that front, like, is it like, how do you deal with, I know this is like loaded, I suppose, but like, how do you deal with criticism? Like with improv, it feels like the whole point is to be so goddamn open and vulnerable, like in a way that, like, I guess if you were to ask me, like, honestly, what would make me nervous about doing improv, it's not the act of it, it's the fact that, like, I think I'd have difficulties with being that open and vulnerable with people, even with like a safe community. So as this gets opened up and I see like some of the clips and shit have like 15 million views and all that, like, you're inevitably going to see some of it. Like, how do you just ignore it? Is that the trick, or is it just completely isolate? Because, you know, you hear one thing and it's like, it would close you off and that makes it worse. You know what I mean? So it just seems so difficult.
Yeah, I learned pretty quickly that I've got a group of like people that are close to me and people whose like opinions on comedy I really trust. And I listen to anything and everything that those people say, and I take it in. And it's like a varying difference of opinions, including my father, who is really not shy about letting me know exactly what he thinks of anything that I'm putting out there. So it is. I'm definitely listening to that type of stuff. When it comes to stuff online, as long as people aren't commenting it on my page, like my personal page, if you're going to comment something negative on my page, block, done, goodbye. Like, that's like, you're not going to come into like I think people absolutely should have thoughts on any kind of art that's out there, but like drop Dropout has a page. There's a Reddit page. There's YouTube comments. Like, go comment on any one of those places. Just don't like. I don't want to know what strangers think about me. I absolutely think that, like, especially putting art online, there should be discourse. I think that that's awesome. Like, it's not for everybody. Like, I think as long as people aren't being like mean about things that people can't control, like looks or anything like that. Like, I think that that is, because that's always so crazy that people take to comment sections to date, I guess. But it is, I really don't have a problem with people saying negative or positive things online. Honestly, I don't really pay too much attention to it. I just like, I don't know. I do think that art should be discussed online, especially when it's on an online forum. I think that that is like, that's great and that's awesome. But also too, like, I'm not going to change all of my comedic sensibilities because, you know, a guy from Maryland has a very specific thought on what a joke should have been. You know what I mean? I think as soon as you start digging too heavily into the things that people are saying positively, you then all of a sudden start caring too much about the things that people are saying negatively. Because the pendulum will always swing. And I think like staying true to the course and like continuing to grow as an artist of any kind or doing whatever you're doing is more important than like listening to strangers who's like, you don't know like what their point of view is or like where they're coming from or like what their comedic sensibilities are. And so like listening or putting too much stock in that positively or negatively, I think just isn't really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're right. They should have as much discourse as they want, and having a discourse or discussion or criticism or whatever is very different than just fucking like going after someone's jugular for no reason. Like, it just seems so. But it frustrates me so much in like a comedy that's like there for your entertainment, supposed to be fun, supposed to be open and vulnerable, to like have to deal with that at all. I mean, it sucks. I mean, there's no avoiding it, obviously, especially as things get popular. But I just figured, man, it's got to be so much harder when your whole job is to be vulnerable. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. Where you put something out there where it's like, I feel very grateful that on the whole, it does feel like, except I did do this one video for a different Dropout show that it was like, I mean, speaking of fruits, the whole like premise of it was like slideshow presentations. And I made one that the whole premise was like vegetables don't exist because like botanically speaking, they don't. There's no scientific term for it. And people still get so mad at me about that. Like, it's like the thing that I get the most comments and the most DMs about. People get furious about
it. So divisive.
Of all things, yeah. Of all things. Who are you? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Well, you do. What I was going to ask you is, who are you? Listen, we grew up in the Midwest where there's like very specific TV personalities that feel very close to what you're doing.
Mark Johnson, weatherman, Cleveland area.
Linda Jackson.
Yes.
Who are you channeling for that character? Do you have a specific person in mind that you're sort of building off of?
Oh, great question. Honestly, there's a lot of different characters. I feel like I watched first and foremost, like a lot of comedic interviews. Like Z-Way was a really great person. Philomena Kunk, like a lot of like those types of interviews, Eric Andre, just to see how they were doing it. Theirs is a little bit different because they're pre-writing all of those questions and then it's like personality based. But I do think it's really valuable to see how they're interacting with guests on the comedic side of things. But then I also just watch like a shit ton of like local cable news. There's like KTLA, like a bunch of personalities on there. I was watching a lot of like Good Morning America. I did a lot of the like Nancy Grace, like Oprah, Barbara Walters. Like I mean, very canceled, but I did watch a bunch of Charlie Rose stuff, like a lot of that type of thing to see how like stylistically they were asking questions. And I just found it unbelievably helpful because it's like a genre a little bit, right? Like they're all all those sit down interviews are happening in like kind of a specific way. So I just thought it was very funny that somebody that like really views themselves like those people, but is on like a cable access budget. I just found like a very, very funny dichotomy.
I always thought that's what I liked so much about like watching late night and stuff growing up, and same thing with any other interview things that have gone viral. You know, Kanye West saying, "What the fuck does Lady Gaga know about cameras?" Things like this. There's something because it's real that is so much funnier that it really does feel unscripted and sort of out of control. That like it's so much of that energy going on, and then you do a thing that I think is great too, where you're constantly repeating the question, the statement that they make back to them, forcing them to sort of deal with the insane thing they've thrown out. Genius.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Well, hey, Thank you. I mean, that literally I just stole from watching interviews and doing that thing where it's like Oprah is like very famous for that, where like somebody will say something and she'll just go, so you think that you're a parent? And it just like it gives you time to think, it gives them time to rationalize. Like 1000%. Thank you for picking that up. I appreciate that.
It's so good. Well, Vic, I think we could ask a lot more questions, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. This has been so much fun. It's so much fun. Half the reason we have the podcast is so that we see cool things happening online and we're able to like talk to them. It's so fun to get to do that, and I really thank you for taking the time to do it with us.
No, this was literally such a blast. I can't tell you both how much I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. Like truly, this was so fun. I really appreciate it.
Okay, well, we'll come back sometime.
Yeah, come back sometime. Also, give our listeners a shout out of where they can find you and whatnot, and then also, if you think you're going to be touring again, if Colorado's on the list, you definitely have to let us know.
You got to come through.
If I have an opportunity to tour in Colorado, I absolutely will come through. I would love to. I love Colorado. I spent a little bit of time there as a kid. Cool. Up at the, I did via martial arts. I was at the Olympic camp for like a little bit, just doing like summer camps and things like that. So not the same area, but Colorado as the same state.
Yeah, Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Where can people find me? At VICMMIC, sort of across the board. That's nothing real to plug at the moment. VIP season 2 is going to be starting in November. That's kind of it. And again, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much, Vic. We'll see you soon. If you need anything from us, you hit us up.
Yeah, don't hesitate.
Yeah, of course.
Well, bye. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.